Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
That great idea of the Tampa Bay Rays playing half their games in Montreal is no longer an option. And right. I for one, I'm shocked. Not. I think I told you the day it came out that there's no chance of this happening. So I don't know why they needed to come out and make this announcement, but I just found it very funny when they did.
It was the most half-cocked, half-baked idea in history. It would never really seemed like real almost.
But for all those people who were holding their breath to have the Rays split their games between Montreal and Tampa, you can now exhale.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
I'm Josh in Toronto.
And I'm Skip in Montreal.
In today's episode, some interesting Duke stats,
baseball free agent signings,
and some hockey news.
But first, the Mascot Hall of Fame.
Okay, Skip, so we've been doing this thing the last few weeks where you have to guess what I'm going to start with. And so I think you've written something in your notebook. And this week, I'm going to give you a little hint before you guess.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to tell you you're not going to guess, but you've already written it down. So it's not soccer this week.
I had a feeling it wasn't.
After 3 straight weeks of soccer, it's not soccer.
Texted you earlier today saying, by the way, I've already have it written down. This is what I have written down.
I can't see.
It says baseball contract.
It's not what we're starting with.
I am shocked.
No, it's on the list, but that's not the biggest news of the week.
Okay.
There were two really big news stories this week. Sports news stories this week.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't sure which one to start with, but I've narrowed it down. And clearly, the most important news of the week was, and I wasn't aware of this, that Youppi was inducted into the Mascot Hall of Fame this week. So there's nothing else we need to start with other than that.
All right, we'll go right to the show close. That's it. We're done.
I want to make sure that we congratulate. I want to make sure we congratulate Youppi because it's quite the accomplishment. I didn't even know there was a Mascot Hall of Fame.
I think there's a Hall of Fame for everything. No?
Is there a Hall of Fame for best podcast? And are we in it?
We're not in it, but I bet you there is one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a big accomplishment for Youppi. You know, he's been traded. I don't know how many mascots have been traded in their careers.
I think he's probably the only one. No?
So that's a big deal right there.
Yeah. He not only did he get traded, he got traded to a different sport.
Correct. That never happens.
Yeah. Super wild, right? Yeah.
And he's also not only a different sport, but he's been effective at both sports, both teams. It's not, you figure you got this really good quarterback, you might trade him to a hockey team, but he's going to suck playing hockey. Yeah. But Youppi, he's been great no matter where he's been.
No, but all kidding aside, kids who are my son's age and under, that go to the hockey games, that go to the Bell Center, they don't know Youppi from the Expos. They don't know the Expos, period. So they know him as a Montreal Canadiens mascot, and he is fully that now. Good for him, no?
And this is why when you go visit the Mascot Hall of Fame, hopefully it has his career stats and it shows, member of the Expos from X year until X year.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true. I don't know when he started. I don't
know. Was he? Yeah, I was going to say the Expos started in '69, but I don't know if Youppi was around in '69. I don't know if he was born yet.
I get the feeling he only started when they moved to the Olympic Stadium, but that could just be me. I don't know. I'm not sure.
That could be.
The National Hockey League.
The other big news this week,
mm-hmm.
and I know you're quite excited about this news, if you even heard it.
Okay.
That next year, I don't know if it's next year or the year after, there will be no World Cup of Hockey.
I mean, this didn't even register on my timeline, in my brain, anything. Because I didn't even know about this. But I guess I don't know about it because I don't actually care about the World Cup of Hockey. So the fact that there's not going to be one sort of just is that's the way it always should have been in the first place. Right?
I guess. I mean,
so I'm actually
very surprised. I'm very surprised.
What are they going to replace it with? They're not going to replace it.
They're not going to replace it, but this means they might go to the Olympics. Although it didn't really make sense to me because this week they said there's no World Cup of Hockey, and a week or two ago Bettman said the chances of NHL players going to the Olympics is slim. So
yeah,
you would think they would do one or the other. I know they're not going to do both, but now it sounds like they're not going to do either. Which, I'm surprised they're not doing the World Cup of Hockey, because that one is pure money for the NHL and the players.
Yeah, but the product was kind of crappy because it was basically like one step up from preseason.
Yes, but all they care about is making money, and this is the biggest. Like, it's just a money grab for them, because they put on this tournament for like a week or 10 days or 2 weeks or however long it takes, and they don't have to share the money with the IHHF.
I know, but when you say a money grab, this is where maybe it's not as big as you think, right? Maybe the stadium, maybe the arenas are not full. Maybe the networks, Sportsnet, which is paid a crazy amount of money for NHL rights, don't want to pay more for this thing, right? So who knows? I mean, obviously, like you always say, money is the answer to every question. So that must be the answer to this question. They're probably just not making as much as they want to make it worth it,
I guess. Anyway, those were the two big stories for me this week.
I mean, it would surprise me if they would go back to the Olympics, because Bettman has spent the last 6 or 8 years basically telling everybody why the NHL players should not be at the Olympics and all the reasons why the NHL doesn't want to go. So for him to all of a sudden say, "Oh yeah, I made a mistake all this time. We changed our mind," he's going to look silly. And we all know Bettman actually really cares what people think about him. So I doubt he'll do that. So
the Olympics is going to come down to money also. So as it stands now, the NHL gets nothing when they send their players there. And until the IOC or the International Ice Hockey Federation decides to fork over some money to the NHL, they're not going to go to the Olympics.
They're not going to go. Yeah, I agree.
All right. What else do you got?
Major League Baseball.
Baseball contracts. It's my number one thing. I wrote it down. I had people texting me during the week, asking me what I thought. There was many discussions on Facebook from some Yankee fans who I'm friends with, who are excited about this move, which I guess they should be. Well, I guess we should preface it by saying what the move is. So there was 2 huge signings this week. Anthony Rendon.
3,
right?
Really. 3.
Actually, it's true. I didn't even think about Strasburg because he stayed with his team, right?
Right.
So I don't have all the dollar figures and the years in front of me. I don't know if you do or not. But
I do. I have everything in front of me.
Yeah, Strasburg signed a huge deal with the Nationals. Rendon signed with the Angels, and Garrett Cole signed an absolutely absurd 9-year, $324 million contract with the Yankees.
And there was actually a fourth pretty big one. Actually, Zach Wheeler signed for $118 million for 4 years, I think, for 5 years rather, with the Phillies.
Yeah, that's significant. But I mean, it's not one of these 250 plus million contracts that we've seen thrown around the last few years. It surprised me because it's such a contrast to last year, in that the last 2 years, all the free agents waited till the end of almost till spring training to sign, and some even during spring training. In the case of what's his name, JD Martinez, when he re-signed with the Red Sox a couple of years ago, and then now here we are in December at the winter meetings, and what it tells me about, like, in the Garrett Cole situation, I can't tell you, but like I guess in all of them, the agents who are always trying to squeeze every penny they can by waiting, they figure the longer they wait, the more offers are going to come. They must feel that, like, these offers are so good, like, let's jump on them. So
the offers were insane. Like, if any of these players didn't take any of these offers, they're drunk, because every single one of these players is way overpaid right now. But I mean, we knew that even before they got their contracts. In the case of, for example, Garrett Cole, 9 years. After 3 years, he's going to suck. So
I was laughing when I heard 9 years, because for the last couple of weeks, you've been fixated on 8 Remember, like, it's the number 8, the 8 years. Who would sign someone to an 8-year contract? 8-year contract. Now 9. Now it's 9. Like, 9 is the magic number now. It's just ridiculous.
You know, by the way, so for example, Garrett Cole is 29 years old. And let's look at the other guys because I have the numbers in front of me. Anthony Rendon is also 29 years old. Steven Strasburg is 31 years old, which I didn't realize he was that old. And Zach Wheeler, 29. So those are the 4 biggest free agent contracts that have been given out this offseason. All these guys are 29 years old and up. I don't know if you're aware of this, but in professional sports, someone did some analysis, and they continue to do this every year. And they've shown that a player's best year is usually around age 27. And after that, he starts to decline. So all these guys are at least 2 years past their 27th
past their
birthday.
Prime. Yeah. I mean, in the case of Strasburg, the contract is ridiculous because, one, he's never, ever, ever, ever been healthy. Even, like, he's never been fully healthy. And I know he had a great year last year. They would not have won the World Series without him. He was healthy right when they needed him, which was in the last 2 months of the season and the playoffs. But, like, he's never been healthy. So the chances of him actually justifying this contract is 0, literally 0, right? In the case of Cole, the Yankees are taking a gamble, right? If
well,
they
the
win
Yankees,
the World Series,
the Yankees actually, the Yankees. So we got to. I mean, I'll let you finish, and then I'll give you my take.
No. Well, like, sure. I mean, in the case of Cole, like you said, he's already a little bit past his prime, but he's still a great pitcher. Don't get me wrong, right? If he brings a World Series to the Yankees this year, next year, whenever, and if he's the focal point of getting them to the World Series, because obviously they do need an ace. Like, the Yankees lineup is stacked, right? They just have no starters. Now they have one. So I guess, I mean, personally, if I had to make a prediction today, I'd say the Yankees are definitely favored to win the division and probably to win the World Series. Just on the basis of this, just on the basis of what we know today. But I mean, there's Yankee fans, and I was on the Yankee message board in Facebook on a discussion about this contract. And someone's like, if they win the World Series, it'll all be worth it. And I completely agree with that. And this fan, someone was trying to justify the contract by saying, well, this guy, and Jacoby Ellsbury are coming off the books this year, so that's how come they could afford him. Can you imagine Jacoby Ellsbury still getting paid by the Yankees? Think about that, right? So in 6 years, all the Yankee fans are going to be saying, when they're signing the hot new free agent in 6 years from now, saying, oh, it's going to be great when the Garrett Cole contract comes off the books, right? That's what's going to happen. But if they win the World Series, that's all they need. That's all they care about, really. The fans don't care about overpaying,
Right. And the Yankees don't care about money. So, because they already spend more than any of their team, and they already pay the luxury tax or whatever it's called. So they're just going to pay more of it. They don't care. And they already have a ton of hitting. But they had no pitching and, well, at least no starting pitching. Or at least not enough of it. And so they had to go out and get a starting pitcher. They had to, and they did. They got arguably the best starting pitcher they could get. The best starting pitcher that was available. They went and got him, and now they have him, which is great. And, for this season and next season and maybe the year after, it'll look great. But after 3 years from now, after he's pitched 3 years in New York, fans are going to be wishing that they could get rid of this guy. Nothing Absolutely. Against him, but like I said, he's 29. So he's going to be 32 and he's not going to be worth the money that he's getting paid. There's no chance.
But you know what the interesting about Cole is, when you look at his stats, he was a wildly inconsistent pitcher before he was on the Astros, he was on the Pirates. In his whole Pirates career, he was incredibly inconsistent. He had flashes of brilliance and stretches where you're like, this guy's the best pitcher in the league, and then he was garbage, right? Like he wasn't this dominant ace that we saw last year, basically until last year. So they're banking a lot on the fact that he's gonna continue his dominant ways. It's not like they signed Clayton Kershaw at that age where he's coming off of 4 incredible years in a row. Cole's coming off of 1.5 great years in a row. That's what he's coming off of.
Well, there are very few pitchers like Clayton Kershaw, like Justin Verlander, like Max Scherzer. Those three pitchers have been consistent for almost their entire career.
Right.
There's not many pitchers like those three guys. So even you can think back to some pitchers who had great seasons, but they had, if they pitched 10 years in the majors, maybe they had 5 good years.
Yeah. Even Verlander, you talked about it. He looked like he was finished at a certain point, but he got rejuvenated when he went to the Astros, and now he became back to dominant like he was at the beginning of his career. Anyways.
So, listen, the Yankees, like I said, they had all this money that they were planning on spending, and they went and got the best pitcher they could get. Now, let's talk about, for a second, the Nationals. The Nationals had 2 free agents. It was unlikely that they were going to re-sign both of them because they probably couldn't afford it.
I think they picked the wrong guy.
Actually, I think they picked the right guy, and I'll tell you why.
Sure.
Good pitching is very scarce in Major League Baseball these days. If you'd asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have given you a completely different answer. But if you're asking me today, good pitching is very scarce. And if you could only keep one of the two, then I say you keep Strasburg. Because, first of all, like I said, pitching is scarce. And you can always go and get another third baseman. For example, Josh Donaldson's available. Another guy that apparently is available, not as a free agent, but via trade, is Chris Bryant. So the Nationals could go out and get another third baseman. But whether they go and get another third baseman or not, whether they picked Strasburg or Rendon or not, or whether they were able to sign both of them even somehow, I'm going to tell you this right now. First of all, Anthony Rendon had a career year last year. He's never going to do that again. And if you look at his past seasons, he's a good player, but he is not as good as what 2019 was. And he'll never do that again. Steven Strasburg.
You're right. He's a very good player, but this year he vaulted himself into superstar status. And you're right. Who knows if he can do that again? Because he never has, right?
Yeah, this year, just been 2019 really was the anomaly.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you look at Strasburg, he's been consistent most of his career. In fact, this was also his best year because he stayed healthy most of the year. But I'll tell you this, even if they were able to keep both of them, the Nationals are not, and by the way, they did re-sign Howie Kendrick, the Nationals are not winning the World Series again because everything went right for the Nationals this year. And as you know, in order to win the World Series, in order to make the playoffs, everything has to go right. And that doesn't happen to a team 2 years in a row.
No, there's a lot of luck involved in any sport to win a championship. There's no doubt about it. I just want to tell you something about Strasburg, okay? Mm-hmm. The average salary, his average salary for this contract per year is $35 million per year. It's like 200 and something for 7 years, right? Mm-hmm. The guy has never made more than 34 starts in a season ever. That's his high. Last year he did 33. And then once he did 34 and once 30. Other times he doesn't even make 30 starts in a season. Sometimes he's lucky if he hits 25, right? So I just can't. It boggles my mind that but you're right. Pitching is so overvalued that you got to pay up. You got to pay $1 million a start now for an ace.
Let me tell you, of the top 4 paid free agents this offseason, I'm going to tell you which team actually did the smartest thing. Between the Yankees and the Angels and the Nationals and the Phillies.
Angels. Oh, the Phillies. Okay, yeah.
Between the Yankees, the Nationals, the Angels, and the Phillies. Which one of them? Right, okay. Which one of them did the smartest thing? It was actually the Phillies because they signed Zach Wheeler, who, maybe he's not a superstar like Garrett Cole, but they only locked him in for 5 years as opposed to 7 or 9. And they're only giving him $118 million as opposed to $245 or $324 million. So I think the Phillies were actually the smartest team of the 4.
Yeah.
And the Phillies...
Well, last year at this time, or maybe it was a little bit after this time, you were talking about how the Nationals had signed Patrick Corbin. Yeah. And you were wondering about how much money they had given him and was it wise. I think the Wheeler is a similar deal.
Yeah, I don't know what Patrick Corbin's contract is, but that turned out to be a good move.
Well, they didn't win the World Series without Patrick Corbin.
Correct. So that turned out to be a good move.
He was very important to them.
So. Also, the Phillies are in a similar situation to the Yankees because they think they're close to winning a World Series. They think they have, they're one player away.
Yeah, but Josh, when you look at all these teams that have signed these $200 million plus contracts, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did it work out for Manny Machado? Padres are still garbage.
Of course.
How did it work out for Nolan Arenado? Colorado's didn't even come close to making the playoffs. How did it work for Bryce Harper? They didn't get to the playoffs. And this is just off the top of my head. There's more. There's others, right? I mean, like, these mega deals have not worked out at all for anybody.
Well, it did work out last year for the Nationals.
Well,
because
but
they
the
won the
Nationals
World
didn't
Series.
Yeah, well, it worked out but I'm talking about for the teams that actually signed someone, not that they let him go.
No, but they signed Patrick Corbin.
Oh, yeah, but that wasn't one of these $250 million contracts. I'm talking about these mega contracts, like...
Yeah, no, I would never go and sign a guy for 245 or 300 or 325. I'd never do that. It's a waste of money. I'm telling you right now, it's a waste of money. And whether it's a 7-year deal or a 9-year deal, after the first 3 years, you're going to wish you didn't have this guy on your team anymore. There's no question about it.
It's crazy what the Angels have done because, like, they signed Mike Trout, and I know Mike Trout had a great year, and you can't blame it on him for not making the playoffs because they're just not good enough. And, now they have Rendon, right? So, like, they're still not going to make the playoffs, I don't think. I don't think they are.
By the way, did the Angels not learn their lesson from the Albert Pujols contract?
Well, that's the dumbest thing in history. I mean, like, when they got Pujols, he was already over the hill. Like, everybody in the world knew Pujols wasn't that good anymore, yet they valued him like he was still the Albert Pujols from 2005, right? Anyways, so that's that. Good luck to all these teams. I just want to have a stat. As you know, I like to save tweets.
Mm-hmm.
The Yankees committed more money to Garrett Cole, $324 million, than the Pirates have on free agents in the past 25 years. 290 million. The Pirates in the past 25 years have only spent $299 million on free agents, and the Yankees beat that by $25 million in one day.
By the way, the Oakland A's and the Tampa Bay Rays have proven that you don't need to go and spend boatloads of money to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, the Rays did just as well as the Yankees this year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually the Astros sort of proved it too because, yes, they have high-paid players, but not at this level. You know what I mean?
Right.
George Springer doesn't make this much. Neither does
Justin
their
Verlander
shortstop.
does.
Verlander, I don't know if he's at this level, though, but yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe you're right. Whatever. Plus, they cheat.
So we're told.
We'll see if Garrett Cole's going to be good without having the knowing when other teams are throwing off speed pitches, when other teams are, tipping his pitches now, right?
But the cheating only helps the Astros hitters. It doesn't
I know,
really help their
but
pitchers.
I'm saying like when he has to pitch in Houston, we'll see what happens
right.
if the trash cans are going to be banging. We'll see.
We'll see about that.
I had another baseball topic. It's kind of depressing.
Okay.
There was like the Hall of Fame stuff this week.
Yeah, I said this last year. I don't like this new Veterans Committee or whatever they call it. Like, so
it's not good.
Basically, if you didn't get into the Hall of Fame the legitimate way the first time, then you wait 10 years or 20 years or whatever it is, and you can get in. So, like, what's the point of doing the whole procedure if you can get in 20 years later?
Yeah. So, like, they did put in Marvin Miller, who's not a player. He was, behind the scenes, basically the first kind of player agent that fought for free agency, and he deserves his place in the Hall of Fame. That's a separate story.
Well, hold on. Before you get off Marvin Miller, he's the reason there's no baseball team in Montreal right now, just so you know. But go on.
Indirectly, but yes. Okay. So Ted Simmons got into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Now, this is where we finally... So I tried to defend last year when Harold Baines got in. I tried to defend it a little bit. And I was like, you could defend it, you could agree with it, you could disagree with it. The stats are borderline. They're less than borderline, but I was trying to rationalize like how it was okay. But this Ted Simmons thing is not okay. It's not okay. And the fact, and I'll tell you how it's not okay. Because there are big baseball fans, people who follow baseball, that follow baseball much more than the average fan, that don't actually know who Ted Simmons is. They don't even know what that name is. So that tells you something.
I think the only reason he got in is because he's a catcher.
That's part of it, I think. Yes. The numbers are like, when you look at his numbers, you're like, they're good for a catcher.
Right.
But So this is what I was thinking of this week. When we were younger, when you look at the big Hall of Fames, right? You look at the Hall of Fames in the 4 major sports, right? You have the Hockey Hall of Fame, baseball, football, basketball. The only one that I always felt that was special, that meant something, was the Baseball Hall of Fame. The Football Hall of Fame is bogus. I feel that like there's a million people in the Football Hall of Fame. Everybody and their brother's in. The Hockey Hall of Fame was also always like that. The standards have always been so low that it's like you feel like everybody's in, right? The Basketball Hall of Fame, the same thing. But baseball, it was so special when you were able to get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. It had this glimmer around it, this shine on it. It was really, really, there was an importance to being in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And that ended now. That ended this week, as far as I'm concerned. Ted Simmons is in the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to Ted Simmons. You were a very good player. You were a very good catcher. But I don't want to steal the line from Tony Kornheiser, what he uses all the time. It's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Very Good.
Right. And actually,
that's not my quote. That's not my quote. But it's not the Hall of Very Good. And Ted Simmons was very good. You know, like I don't know. It's just it's kind of sad.
You say it ended this week. I say it ended a year ago or 2 years ago, whenever they introduced this new committee.
Yeah. But there was always the Veterans Committee. But I felt like the Veterans Committee was going way back in time, you know? And getting guys that were maybe time has passed and maybe it's the same thing, but I felt like they were always going back to the 20s and 30s and 40s and inducting players that are not even alive anymore, right? Here I feel it's like Ted Simmons, well, I mean, we know for a fact it was with Harold Baines. He had relationships with people who were voting him in, that they were so pro Harold Baines last year that's how he got in. And who knows about Ted Simmons? I don't know. Is his old coaches or managers or ex-teammates the ones that are voting him in? Like,
and by the way, I don't have the names in front of me, but there were other guys on the ballot who didn't get in. And when I heard the names, I said, half of those guys are better than Ted Simmons. How did they not get in?
Dale Murphy deserves it more than Ted Simmons. And I think Lou Whitaker deserves it more than Ted Simmons. I don't think you could have Alan Trammell in the Hall of Fame and not have Lou Whitaker.
They're pretty much the same player, those two.
Trammell was maybe a little bit better. So I understand when you look at the stats, you're going to see Trammell's better, but like they're one and the same. It's like you know, apple pie and ice cream.
Okay.
They go together, right? Anyways, that's baseball. I feel bad because you know how much I love the Baseball Hall of Fame. We did a road trip there a couple of years ago. I would still consider going back, but I don't think I'll be taking any pictures in front of the Ted Simmons plaque.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So another one other baseball note having nothing to do with the Hall of Fame or free agent signings.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you're aware of this, but this coming baseball season, rosters are going to expand to 26 players instead of 25. And they haven't expanded roster size maybe since I was 10 years old or even less. Like I think
whole life it's been 25.
I think my entire life baseball rosters have been 25 players. So the fact that they're doing this, the fact that they're doing this is a big deal, number one. And the other rule that's coming into effect this season is that now when a pitcher comes into a game in the middle of an inning, that pitcher will either have to finish the inning or face at least 3 batters, which I actually like this rule because I don't like pitching changes. I know that a lot of managers are very angry with this rule, but I'm going to tell you something. This rule is going to save a few managers because there are too many managers who overmanage and think that they're geniuses and play this chess match. But now they won't be able to, and it's going to save them. So they should be thanking Major League Baseball for implementing and instituting this rule.
I'm trying to look it up. I think it's been a 25-man roster. Sorry, I'm looking it up like very quickly. I think it's been a 25-man roster since 1968.
Yeah, so that's before we were born.
Our whole lives.
And we're old.
actually, the 3-batter rule is fine. I mean, I know there's all these like purists and they're like, no, because the rules of baseball really haven't changed at all. Like rules haven't really changed ever. Whereas in other sports, they're constantly changing the rules.
Yeah.
You have to, because, you know, that makes sense because you have to sort of adapt with the times, right? So yeah, I let's see how it goes with this minimum 3-batter thing, right? Well, I mean, is that the end of the lefty specialist? Is that the end of the lefty specialist?
I guess.
Is that no more?
I had a better idea, which I said on this show 6 months ago, where if you look back at, let's say, 1980, and you look at any baseball team's roster in 1980, teams only carried 10 pitchers back then. Now they carry like 11, 12, 13 pitchers. So if you just told teams, if you made a rule where you could only carry 10 pitchers on your roster, you wouldn't need this 3-batter minimum rule because managers would be like, oh, I only have 10 pitchers. 5 of them are starters. Right. I only have 5 relievers. I can't waste all my relievers in this game because I got another game tomorrow. So that would solve all your problems, really. So
these two new rule adjustments are kind of opposed to each other because the 26th roster player is definitely going to be a pitcher, right? In most cases, don't you feel?
Well,
and yet the 3-batter minimum is going to help the managers not have to use so many pitchers. Presumably.
Well, now you see that you say it's going to be a pitcher, but if teams were carrying 13 pitchers before, then the 26th guy is probably going to be a hitter.
Yeah.
If they were already carrying 13 pitchers.
We should do an over under. Not which team, but like what roster, what's going to have the biggest number of pitchers? Like, is there going to be a team that's going to carry 14 pitchers, 15 pitchers, 16? Can you think of that? Like, I don't, that's
16,
that's
no, because then you don't have enough hitters.
No. I know, you don't have enough hitters, but like, what's the most we're going to see this year?
Well, if it was 13 last year, I think you might see a team carry 14 pitchers.
Yeah.
But yes,
nuts, right?
The two rules sort of, it doesn't make sense. You're letting teams have an extra player, but you have this minimum batter thing. So is that extra player even going to, how many appearances is he going to have in a season?
Yeah, I don't know.
And that 26th guy on the roster, it's going to be a different guy like every week because they're going to send a guy down to the minors, call up a different guy. It's not going to be the same guy.
People are going to go on the what is it called? The injury list.
Yeah, the 10-day injury list, which, by the way, is the biggest joke. Like, they make up these fake injuries all the time. You know that.
They always did. You're the biggest conspiracy theorist I've ever met about the fake injuries. There's many, many times over the years where you're like, that's 100% a fake injury. There's 100% a fake injury. And I'm like, I don't know. If they say he's injured, he's injured.
No, especially if especially when, it's one thing if it's like, a middle infielder who pulled a hamstring, running to second base, fine. But when they come out with this, let's say, I don't know, whatever starting pitcher pitched the night before, and then the next day after he pitched and he got shelled that night, the next day they come out and say, oh, we're placing so-and-so on the 10-day DL with a tired shoulder. Yeah. Like, he just got lit up the night before, and it just so happens that now you're placing him on the injured list. So
they want him to skip a start, and they just want to call up someone else.
Exactly. So don't tell me it's not a made-up fake injury.
All right. So I did have some other notes about some other sports, but like, I'm not like passionate about really talking about any of them. So like, what else did you have?
College basketball.
I did some research, and I have some stats about Duke basketball that you may be interested in.
Basketball? NBA?
No, Duke basketball.
Oh, Duke basketball. The only basketball that counts.
Yeah. The NBA is a joke.
Yeah, it is. Continue.
So I was looking at kenpom.com. That's the website that friend of the show, Neil Schnerbach, likes to quote.
Yeah, he's got all the advanced stats.
He does.
Offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, all that stuff, right?
So listen to these stats. Through the first 10 Duke games, Duke's bench has accounted for 38.3% of its minutes, which is very different from Duke teams of the past. For example,
I would be surprised if last year it was probably less than 10%.
Well, let me tell you. Duke hasn't had a bench that plays even 30% of its team's minutes since 2012.
Wow.
And 9 different players are averaging between 13 and 25 minutes per game. only Trey Jones is averaging more than 30 minutes a game.
Right. Okay.
Now, a couple
this may change as the season, but this may change as the season progresses. I have a feeling Coach K is using this first 10 games, even then first 20 games, to sort of figure out what his rotation is going to eventually become. You know,
things change when you start playing within your own conference, and I think Duke has only played one conference opponent so far.
Sure.
Now, but just a couple more stats, and then I'll let you go with yours. So Duke is forcing turnovers at the highest rate in the last decade.
Yeah.
And Duke's also tough to beat on the glass. And this year, Duke is a better 3-point shooting team than they were a year ago.
Well, they were a terrible 3-point shooting team last year. They're not a great 3-point shooting team this year by any means. They're just better than last year.
Right.
But remember I told you last year, like, all they needed is it boggled my mind last year, because every team in the NCAA, you get to the NCAA tournament, and every team, any rando team, Division II teams even, have a guy that when he's open, he'll hit his three. You know, that's what he's there for. He stands in the corner, you get him the ball, he shoots it, you know it's going in. How come we couldn't have a guy like that last year? There was no reliable 3-point shooter. And every team has guys that could just pull up and hit threes. And yet somehow we couldn't find that guy. But we do have those guys this year. They're not great 3-point shooters, but they can hit them, like, with some frequency, you know? So just interesting. And you mentioned about the steals. Yeah, because Trey Jones is a steals machine. And the other new freshmen that they have, Wendell Moore and Cassius Stanley, are freaks of nature athletically, and they really pressure the ball. And then you throw in the minutes that Jordan Goldwire's been getting. So, like, they're a very, very tough man-to-man defensive team. Like, we're not going to see what he did last year when they went to zone defense because they didn't know how to play defense. Right? Coach K's MO is always man-to-man, and the last couple of years he's had to switch to zone because his players didn't know how to guard, you know? All right, so that's interesting. Duke, I didn't expect that. You've been doing your research on the Ken Pom.
Yes, I have.
Super.
The National Hockey League.
I mean, I made a note to talk about NHL. I don't know if you want to talk about the NHL. I don't know if you want to talk about the Habs, the Leafs. I mean, we sort of mention the same themes every week, you know, like the Leafs are just not any better with their new coach.
Well, I mean, they're
like,
6-4.
Not.
They're 6-4 with their new coach. So technically, according to the numbers, they're slightly better with their new coach.
Right, they're slightly better. And the Canadians are basically the same. I don't think they're playing. People are all excited because they're out of their losing streak, but they're not playing any better than they were out of their losing streak. They're just winning these close games that before they were losing. It's sometimes the bounce goes your way here and there, or, you know, one guy steps up. And
what's interesting is Canadians are beating the good teams.
Yeah. The problem with that losing streak is they lost to all the worst teams, and they're going to regret not picking up those points, because you see how tight the playoff race is right now. You know, like there's 5-6 teams going to be fighting for those last two spots. It's going to go down again to the last week of the season for sure. Like
it always does, because of that stupid point for losing in overtime. No team is ever out of it.
Yeah, the loser point is, I don't want to say it's bad, but the loser point keeps it close, right?
Yeah.
It keeps it close.
Yeah.
It's just, I was just thinking about it this week, because there's one year, I don't know, it's a couple years ago, and our episode was called "The Tale of Two Cities." It was after the season was over, right? And the Habs lost, and the season was a bust, and in Montreal it was all doom and gloom. Yet somehow the Leafs were also, their season was over basically the same week. Yet somehow it was all positivity. And like that, this theme of A Tale of Two Cities keeps coming up, you know, in our conversations. And I just, like, the way I look at it is like the Leafs are like tons of talent, but yet they just don't have an identity as a team. Like, I don't know what their identity is. Are they this high scoring team? Are they relying on their goalie? Like, I'm not even sure. And the opposite is of the Habs is that they don't have enough talent, but they do have an identity, which is this incredibly hard working team. You know when you play the Habs, you're in for like you're gonna be skated in. You're gonna have to skate your ass off for 60 minutes because they are. So that's my take on the Habs and the Leafs.
And yet the Canadiens almost blew it against the Senators this week.
Senators are not as bad as everyone thinks.
But they're not that good either.
No, they're not that good either. They have a lot of young players, and then a lot of young players who are stepping up, and I think they're buying into their underdog role, and they've upset a lot of teams so far this year. They're a big surprise in that they're not last in the league, which is an accomplishment, I guess.
College football.
Are you following? We never talk about this subject. Are you following any NCAA football?
Well, I know what's going on, but my thoughts on NCAA football. I think it's a joke that, well, there's so many things that are a joke. First of all, the way they determine which teams get into the playoffs is a joke.
Yeah.
It's like it's just the opinion of 13 people is basically what it is. Now, this year is the first year that I think they actually picked the correct 4 teams. And the reason for that is because it wasn't really, this was the easiest year for them to pick because they had 3 teams that were undefeated and they had, only 3 other teams that had 1 loss. But of all the teams that had 1 loss, there was really only one of those that really was a legitimate top 4 team. So they actually picked the right teams this year. So I don't have an issue with that. However, they picked these teams a week ago, and now none of them are playing until like December 28th or something, which is almost like
December
a full
28th.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know why they're not playing this week or next week. It's kind of a joke to me that they have to wait that long. And then the championship game is like January 10th or something. Hold on, let me look at my calendar. It's like January 13th, I think, is when the championship game is.
It's really far. It's far in the future. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a different year already, literally.
It is a different year. Yeah, whatever. I mean, look, I don't follow the NCAA football that much during the season, but I will watch those two. I will watch those 2 bowl game playoff games. Like I watch those, And there's some good stories there, right? Because you have Jalen Hurts on Oklahoma, you have LSU with Burrows, who's probably going to be the Heisman Trophy winner, and then Clemson's been the best team in college football for the last 3 or 4 years, and they have an amazing quarterback. And Ohio State is like, actually most people think they are maybe the best team also. So I don't know. I'll follow it just to see what happens, But like you said, it's the opinion of 13 guys, and their decision was made very easy this year. It was
actually, I don't think it's just men. I think there's women in there too. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
you're right.
It's not guys.
You're right. Yeah.
I'm just thrilled that Alabama isn't in it. I'm thrilled about that.
It's the thrill. It's the thrill of my life. Actually, it was the best thing that happened in sports this month. That fact that Alabama's not in. I'm so sick of them. No.
I am sick of them. The only equivalent to Alabama not getting in would be somehow the Patriots not making the NFL playoffs, which I know that's not going to happen, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Patriots. Okay, so segue to the NFL, or not, but yeah, Patriots. They're going to make the playoffs, that's for sure.
Yeah,
but
they will.
Maybe but hopefully like their playoff run will be short and everybody will be happy. Well, you will be.
I will, but there are a lot of Patriots fans out there.
Of course, Neil Schnurback, our main guest, is a huge Patriots fan. He's going to be listening to this and saying, "Why are you disparaging my Patriots?"
Well, they're just an easy team to hate, As are, for example.
They really are.
I was watching a game the other night, a hockey game on television between 2 teams that I don't care about. And I was rooting for one over the other only because one of the teams was the Bruins, and I hate the Bruins. And the only reason I hate the Bruins is because of Brad Marchand. That's it.
Right. Because he's a little weasel.
He is. He's a big weasel, actually.
Yeah, he's a big weasel. Before we sign off, remember, you can listen and subscribe to new and archived episodes of the Skip and Josh podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and of course, Spotify. If you listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. We would love to hear from you via email, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, via Twitter at Skip and Josh, or by liking and following our Facebook page. As always, you can get all the links to everything I just talked about on our website, skipandjosh.com.
We leave you with this.
I did have a couple little tidbits to end the show with, Josh.
So do I.
We mentioned hockey before. Mm-hmm. We didn't touch on this, but so I don't know if you saw this week, Shea Weber scored on a wraparound.
I did see that.
Which is really rare, and they interviewed him after the game. Did you hear about this?
I didn't hear the interview, no.
They asked him when was the last time he scored a wraparound.
Yeah.
And he said, the last time I scored a wraparound was in NHL 95.
Oh. You mean when he was playing and he used himself?
Exactly, in the video game. So I thought that was very, very cute.
When is he ever at that end of the ice?
Never. I mean, it was a spectacular goal. No doubt about it. Yeah. What do you got?
So I found out something this week that really bugs me, except the rest of the world has known about this for at least 2 years, maybe longer.
Can't wait to hear what this is.
So at work, they provide me with a mobile phone, and I've had the same one for over 3 years now. And this week they told me that I needed to get a new mobile phone because our internet security doesn't support the old phone because it's too old. So they gave me a new phone. It's actually not new. It's a used phone, but it's new to me. And
new to you.
And it's an upgrade from the phone that I was using before. So the new one is an iPhone 8, which I think you have an iPhone 8. And
I do, yes.
And iPhone 8s have been around for at least 2 years, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But what bugs me, what I discovered about the phone is there's nowhere in this phone to plug in your headphone jack. You now need to purchase an adapter. And this adapter costs, if I'm not mistaken, $10 or maybe even $15. Basically, Apple is the biggest scam company on the earth because they purposely build this product without a jack for your headphone.
I love it.
Then they force you to buy this adapter, which is another $10 or $15, because if you don't buy the adapter, you can't listen to your music or anything.
But when you got the phone, it's because when you got the phone, it didn't come new in the box. Is that why? Because the phone comes with the proper headphones that will fit into the adapter that the phone is built with.
Except that those are like the little earbuds that you put in your ear. If you want to wear headphones like what I'm wearing right now, you can't use those. So you have to buy the adapter. So not bad enough that they overcharge you for the phone itself, and you think, Apple's making money hand over fist because their phones are so expensive. But if you think everyone that has this phone, an Apple 8 or newer, needs to now go and buy this adapter, that's millions of people spending $10 a pop.
The $10 a pop for the adapter is the least expensive thing you have to get. What they really want you to do is buy the AirPods that cost $150 to $200, the wireless. That's what they want, not the $10 adapters to appease the cheapskates like you. Everybody else, all the big suckers, are buying the big ticket items.
Well, I mean, for this reason alone, you should never buy an Apple product. And by the way, this connection for my headphone that I'm wearing right now, this has been around since before I was born. This isn't like something that's new.
Right. I know. I purposely did not. I resisted getting anything above the 7 for the longest time, specifically for this reason. Because I was scared about what's going to happen when I don't have... Not that I have to buy a new thing, but you cannot charge and listen to... Unless you have the AirPods like I have, because I was lucky enough that my family bought them for my birthday. But you cannot charge your phone and plug in your headphones at the same time.
Well, that's a big problem.
Right? Well, but the thing is you can, because I don't know if you know that the 8 has wireless charging. You can buy a charging pad and just set it down.
Okay, but what happens if you're in your car, for example? You can't do that in your car.
You need a wireless charge. You cannot. This is correct. Although some cars have the charging pad now. But we're just talking in stupidities now. Right?
No, but I mean,
they took something that every single phone has and they just took it away for basically no reason.
Right.
Other than that they want you to buy more expensive add-ons. Maybe you're going to have to switch to the Google world. Get out of the iPhones.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Prove a point.
Anyway.
Prove a point. No more Apple for you. No?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't have any other than the 2 phones. I don't have Apple products. My computer's not an Apple.
Right. All right. sweet episode. Good talking to you. Same time, hopefully next week, and then maybe 2 or 3 more episodes to the big year-end finale. No, I'm not sure when we'll do it. During the Christmas.
It's not going to be next episode. It'll be
either the next one or the one after that.
Correct.
Yeah. Sweet. All right, Josh. Great talking to you.
You too.